On this episode of the program, if you wanted me to get yelled at about my debate takes, this is the episode for you. Plus, we break down polling errors and which state will be the tipping point with Tom LoBianco and Michael Cohen, the man who wrote the book on the modern political campaign. It's all coming up.
The following is brought to you by AB Puppy, Just Another Pilot, and Daily Tech News Show.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Politics program for September 13th, 2024. Your old pal Justin Robert Young. Let's go ahead and get into our conversation. Welcoming two of our good friends. We are now in the end game. And if that is the case, then we need to check in with our little troika of experts. Tom LoBianco, 24site.news, and Michael Cohen, the man who wrote the book on the modern political campaign.
Hi.
Let's start here because I might be, apparently me and Ezra Klein are the only people in political media that didn't think Kamala Harris necessarily delivered and that Donald Trump's Donald Trumpiness is priced into the debate. I have gotten a lot of criticism, and so I feel like it would be great to performatively have you guys deliver that now. Why am I wrong about thinking that this was not quite the win that it has been portrayed as?
Kamala Harris occupied the space that Trump occupied in the first debate, which is, I don't think she did outstanding. If you isolated her performance and just put her up there alone, I don't think that it was like the world's most amazing debate performance, but Trump did terribly. And he occupied the space which used to be occupied by Biden, 3 months ago. And because of that, I mean, you can't not see it. I mean, it's somehow she successfully managed to distill that guy down into eating cats and dogs. That is like, I mean, Democrats have been trying to do that for 8 years now, and she did it. So, but I don't think she did amazing. I just think she did good, and he did terribly.
Yeah. Michael?
I think when you look at these sort of matchups, like there's sort of a strategic imperative for each campaign, and then there's a tactical, one-offs that you can sort of quibble with. So the strategery of this whole thing was that Trump wanted to sort of unravel her as a crazy liberal. Okay? She didn't do that. She did not do that. Okay? She did not do that. He did not do that of her. The strategic imperative of Harris was to take him to Crazy Town. And he took that train, the first car, and he put the foot on the gas, and he killed the conductor and took the wheel himself, and he put his middle finger up all the way down to Crazy Town. Okay?
Yeah.
So when you look at that, you say, okay, strategy, check for Harris, right? Then you look at the tactics, right? And so there are things that Harris wanted to probably do that she didn't. So for example, I mean, she wanted to sort of talk about the policies that she thought were broadly popular. She only talked about a few. She missed opportunities to take advantage of the foreign policy part of it in particular. She didn't mention that they expanded NATO. I mean, he was talking about all these great deals that he did. The best deal in foreign policy over the past 4 years was expanding NATO and actually making Putin's life more difficult than less difficult. And so she left that one on the table. I don't know why, okay? Trump had no good answer for what we were talking about before a few weeks ago, which was he was going to go into the debate and all of a sudden drop some kind of new policy that we were going to talk about for the next 2 weeks, right? He went into, he had a meal in Arizona and decided to come out with no taxes.
No taxes. No, Nevada. Yeah, he was
Nevada,
in Vegas.
I'm sorry,
yeah.
Nevada. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was looking for the thing that we weren't expecting, okay? Because Trump is unpredictable, right?
Yeah.
As it turns out, Trump was much more predictable than I predicted he would be. And so what it comes down to is that she basically, on the tactics, it was kind of a wash here and there. But on the strategery of the whole thing, she totally crushed it, right? Let me wrap this up.
Go
I
ahead.
told my students before, this was Tuesday night before the
Yeah.
debate. I said, I want you to do 3 things tonight. First of all, we're going to cancel class, the last hour of class after giving them pizza. I'm like, because I buy my students off. And
Nice.
so I said to them, do 3 things. Number 1, look for substance. Give me 1 piece of substance from each of the candidates. Number 2, look for the viral moment, because it's a digital political strategy course. And
Yep.
then number 3, look for the weird. Okay? So I showed 2 different things. I didn't show anything on substance because everybody sort of gets that intuitively. Give me something that I didn't know about the candidate. That's
Yeah.
substantive. The second piece was the viral moment. The viral moment was obviously the eating dogs that Tom was talking about. That was insane.
Yeah.
And pets.
Cats and dogs,
yeah,
which
and
syncs
so-
up perfectly with the Peanuts theme. I don't know if you guys saw
It
that
does.
video.
Oh my God, that's the most
Yeah.
amazing thing, and you need to drop.
They're
that
eating
into
the
your show
cats.
notes.
They're eating the
literally
dogs.
best part of the whole
They're
thing.
eating the pets.
Da, 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 da. Oh, it's amazing, right? And then, but the thing was, is like the viral moment that went real viral after that was not anything in the debate. It was to Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift drops her endorsement right
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah.
And that thing goes viral like you wouldn't believe.
Yes.
And then the weird on the viral thing, I said, watch the Kamala Harris piece where she said that girl was me. And so we
Yes.
showed that in class. And like that
Her
was
best-
the moment
her best
where
moment.
like
Yeah.
where Biden does this, looks to his right like, oh my God, oof,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so and then the weird, I showed Tom, your boy, Mike Pence, and
The fly on the
the
head.
fly on the head, right? And I said to my students, I don't know that we're going to get weird tonight, but we're certainly going to get viral. Oh my God, did we get weird?
We got weird.
Again, when you look at it on substance, maybe it's sort of equal. There's a couple of things on both sides that were surprising. I mean, I didn't know that, for example, Kamala Harris, I knew she was a cop, but I didn't she knew she had a gun. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get into that because that was another thing.
That was incredible.
But go ahead.
This guy slipped it right in there, like I'm packing. So,
Well,
so don't
and-
mess with me. I got a gun in my pocket.
Yeah, me and Tim Walz are
here.
gun owners, and then they were ready with a 2019 CNN interview that she did, I guess, during the campaign.
It's incredible. Yeah, I mean, to me, I was like, what? Like all of a sudden, you're just sitting there going, wait a minute, Kamala Harris has a gun. That's incredible. Like,
I mean,
how is this not
by-
like the
by the
biggest
way,
news
shout out
story of
OG
the cycle, right?
Shout out to Ryan Macbeth, who's been on the show. He's a Open Signals intelligence analyst YouTuber. Great dude. But he was watching my live stream of it, and in that moment, apparently it inspired him. He made a video where he tried to track down exactly what type of gun Kamala Harris owns.
Did he figure it out?
He has an educated guess. I don't know enough about guns to know
Neither do I.
to know what it would
I
be.
mean, clearly
but
it's not
go ahead and get
AK-47, right?
his YouTube channel has a short where he goes.
That's amazing. Yeah, we got to watch that. But we should watch that right now, actually.
Let's go.
Okay, I know. Let's go. And then on Trump's side, I mean, I really couldn't find very much that was sort of new and interesting in that
No.
debate. It was sort of a nothing burger. Like everything that you knew about Trump was just there for you.
Yeah.
And so that's how I walk away from it. So like there was nothing really new from Trump. He went completely to crazy town, right?
Yes.
So that's the reason why you would say, okay, that's a bad debate for him. And then on Harris's side, she totally kept her cool, looked at him kind of like, what are you, crazy? Like kind of like channeling the normie who's watching the debate.
See, that's where I don't know. That's where I don't know where the line is between, because it hits like crack on Twitter, right? For her
Sure.
to do the like finger cloud, like that kind of look. I don't know how that plays to everybody else. I don't know if it comes off as dismissive. I don't know if it comes off as unserious. I don't know if it comes off as too casual. What I do know is this, and this is something that I will totally cop to. From 2016 on, I have consistently had to readjust my barometer for Donald Trump's connection to America, however much he is connected to,
Sure.
based
45%
on
of America. Right.
yeah, and whatever he appeals now to the independents and how much it would turn him off. like based on me not trusting my base instincts on watching his debates, because every single time I have watched him debate, I have come away saying, good Lord, like who would look at that guy? We're a long way away. In my debate recap episode, I was talking to Kurt Beto. Go back and watch those 92 debates with Perot, Clinton, and H.W. Bush. And Perot was thought to be the cartoon character, right? That's why Dana Carvey's impression is essentially like a Yosemite Sam take. Yeah. But if you watch those debates, they're erudite, they're full of substance, they're cutting, they go in on each other. It's not like they're nice, but there is like a rat-a-tat-tat element to it that has a bit of a ballet. You watch Trump, the Visigoths have sacked Rome. Like this is brutal. And yes, sometimes it's the thing that he saw on the television, which he will say behind the podium. What I have had to do my entire time in covering Donald Trump is saying, some people dig that. Some people really, really dig that. They dig the idea that he says the thing. So I need to look at it and say, discount whatever I think is totally terrible, and now focus on what the other side is doing. And that was the only thing I would say about Kamala, is that what we got was a blending. It was really the greatest hits of everything that's happened on in the Democratic Party from Trump on. It was a little bit of Hillary, a little bit of Biden, and a little bit of Elizabeth Warren. Shake it up in a tube and serve to taste.
But Justin, it was also a lot of Trump. I mean,
of course, it's always a lot of Trump.
No, but listen. No, I'm saying it's not a lot of Trump. I'm saying Kamala went in as Trump. She said, okay, this is the way you win a debate right now. You're combative. You go right at the guy. You get under his skin. You make him trip up. And then you own the stage, right? And in every moment...
I don't think that she owned the stage.
In every moment that she chose to go after him, okay, she totally pulled him into a place he didn't want to be. That's Trump's massive advantage in all of these, is that he always makes you do the thing that you don't want to do, okay? That's why Marco Rubio went in and talked about small hands, and then the next day apologized because he didn't want to do it. Kamala Harris said, screw that. I want to do it. I'm going to talk about 34 felonies. Wow. I'm going to talk about every single thing that Joe Biden was worried about going in because it wasn't presidential. She's like, screw that. This is not about
Joe Biden did that he did that in July. He said he had the canned lines of "You're the sucker, you're the loser." But also, like, that's the thing about the Biden.
Though he didn't get underneath his skin.
Well, because his brains were leaking out of his mouth, and his career was over, right? So,
Biden used to be able.
Oh, anyway, nobody's been able to do that, Justin. Nobody. This is literally the first time I've ever seen Trump melt down on stage.
This feels exactly like 2016 to me. Even the reaction feels the exact same to me. That it's like Hillary was presidential. He was the barbarian. He was embarrassing.
It was more like 2020 to me. He blew up and freaked out in a debate, and Biden.
No, the only reason why it doesn't feel like 2020 to me is because he didn't make her sympathetic in the way that he made Biden sympathetic. That to me is why it was Donald Trump's worst debate in 2020, was that he was running over Biden so much and talking over it and fighting with Chris Wallace so much that he made everybody else sympathetic, and especially where the country's nerve was during lockdown. That was not what anybody wanted to see from a commander-in-chief.
Yeah, but I see the same thing. Like you basically identified with Biden in that moment. You're like, shut up, man. And you basically identified with Harris in that moment, like, oh my God, what am I looking at? And I think
to some,
I think to a certain extent, there's some same kind of vibe to the whole thing. Yeah. So okay.
I don't think it's either. I don't think it's either one of the previous races, and I agree with Michael here that this is more than any Democrat. Okay, other than Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi knows how to work that guy.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris worked him in a very similar way. Like, remember when Pelosi tore up the speech and everybody was aghast? Yeah. And, all of the pearl clutching, which is like Rubio. And what did Kamala Harris do up there? She created a singular moment by questioning his size. And she learned the lessons, which, by the way, was the exact same thing that Obama did on stage.
He did the dick size thing. Yeah.
He did,
Yeah.
and look and you can tell it's strategic and it's tactical, because then what does the campaign do? They put out a viral ad immediately afterward, playing up that Obama this,
Yeah.
and they say, you know what we're talking about,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
wink.
it's,
Wink.
and
Yeah.
and that is exactly how you handle it, because look at how, in the run up to this, everybody was talking about mics being muted and whatnot,
Yes.
whether or not that's going to matter. And Kamala Harris, and I think you could see this in some of these reflexive reactions from people like Frank Luntz, where he's like, well, she was doing too much facial expressions on TV.
Yeah.
That's just too much. I don't want to be misogynist. This will probably sound misogynist, but that's just too much from a woman. And she rightly diagnosed, and he got dragged for it as a result, that people watching would be reading the body, the physical cues. When she went in to shake his hand at the opener, and he recoiled.
Yep.
And then he tried to, on September 11th, yesterday, he tries to, on the anniversary, he tries to recoup it. And it was fascinating to see how, like, he tried to pull her in, and she's half his size. I mean, what is she, like 5'4"?
Uh-huh.
And she actually, you can tell, like, physically plants her foot back there and, like, pulls her arm back, and she's like, thank you.
Yeah.
And that is something that we have not seen from Democrats before, because they used to get stuck in the morass. They would, like, even Biden to an extent. Biden would do, I thought he did very well at beating Trump at his own game, when he's like, this is the type of guy that if we were in high school, I'd take him out back behind the gym and pound the crap out of him. And I always thought that worked very well, but there was that level of, like, Clintonian seriousness that they always had too, which is like, well, this is an existential threat to our nation, and we have to be above everything. And Kamala Harris is like, no, we're just going to talk about his size, and it sent him off.
Justin, the one more thing on the debate. I mean, we can go more on the debate, but
No. I think we've had enough debate talk.
The real reason why you're wrong.
And there we go. There we go.
Is because
That's how we're bringing you guys on, because I need to give voice to the audience that's yelled at me.
Look, it's really important to have your friends around you who are willing to tell you the truth.
Of course.
Trump's
Yeah.
problem is he doesn't have people around him who's willing to tell him the truth, right? So we're around you, and we need to tell you the truth. So here we go. This is actually from our group chat. The three of us were talking about this at night, and I said, okay, how do you know that someone's won, someone's lost? If you win, you go out and you party, and you've got yourself a rally. She went out and ripped it up and was excited, and everything was, sunshine.
Joe Biden had a rally too, for the record.
No, Joe Biden was barely at the rally. Okay.
Well,
okay.
He had a rally.
He had the microphone.
He had a rally.
Yeah. Jill had the mic at the rally. Okay.
He answered all the questions. He did
Doug
so
did
well.
not have the mic at the rally last night. Okay. That wasn't Doug's rally. It was Kamala's rally. Okay. And she was pumped up, and she knew she won. Right. Yeah. Seeing Trump walk off the stage, there's sort of this slumping picture of him. Not great. But the worst part of it is that he doesn't slump back to Mar-a-Lago. He goes to the spin room. He doesn't just let his lackeys do it. He doesn't just let JD.
He's done that for every debate that there was a spin room, though, except for the Biden one. He did that. He did that with Clinton.
Anyway, point being, winners celebrate, losers spin. He was there trying to spin it up, and he wasn't even getting interviews with CNN because they talked to Vance instead, because he wasn't worthy enough of an interview. It was amazing. All right. So the point is like, you can tell by the body language and the aftermath of, like, why who won and who lost. He's trying to figure out whether or not he wants to have a debate because he's, quote unquote, he won. Everybody knows he didn't win. Okay. The world knows he didn't win. Even the people around him know he didn't win. And I certainly know Tony Fabrizio knows he didn't win, because I worked with Tony. Yeah. He's smart. So look, you just see the body language. You see what goes on afterwards. He didn't go and rip it up on stage afterwards.
Sure.
And say, we're going to make America great again. His wife didn't even show up to the debate. Okay. So, like, we're really at the point right now where it's pretty obvious what happened.
She's on her book tour.
She's on a creepy Twilight Zone book tour where she's showing those videos. I'm just getting ready to
those
her
film
saying,
noir videos.
The truth is out there. I mean, this is really spooky Mulder going
I
on
just think
over there.
she always looks like she's about to walk into a Gumshoe's office to ask about her long lost fiance or something like that, like an old
Yeah,
Dashiell
when did she
Hammond
get the
novel.
rose, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's really creepy. Anyway,
She had a
point being,
thick European accent and legs that wouldn't quit for days.
yeah, surgically.
Yeah, all right, last
repaired
thought
body.
here. This is
Yeah.
the only thing that I would say is I would push back slightly in that I think that this debate, and I said this before, I think that it meant more for Kamala than it did for Trump. That
Yeah, I
as
agree with
crazy as Trump can or will be, I don't know how much more defined the most famous person in the world can get.
Right.
Like, and I don't think that there's anybody close to the fame that Donald Trump has and the personal feelings, the emotionally deep-rooted feelings that America has about Donald Trump. There's no thing he can do. There's no puppy he can save that will make people that hate Donald Trump like him. There is no person that he could shoot on Fifth Avenue that would make the people that love him hate him. It is just not, he's a fixed thing. And so Kamala is there. The thing that and we can stop here, that I still believe is that what we heard from her, the most we've talked about is her combative nature to Trump.
Right.
And I'll concede all of it to you guys. I really don't disagree with much of it. What we didn't hear a whole lot about is answering the fact that 60% of the country and the swing states want major change. She sounded exactly like everybody else that's happened. And, let's say Donald Trump didn't do the best job of defining her as a liberal. He sure said liberal, Marxist, liberal a lot. And, as Tom and I have joked, we're now past Labor Day, where a horn has sounded, and the campaigns are going to be running down the 10,000 people who will actually decide this election, kicking down doors and running into their homes. But they make these decisions on very vibesy things.
Yeah.
And if it's Frank Luntz's, I don't know, she was being a little bit too dramatic on one side of the screen, then that's going to be what it is. And maybe it's, no, I finally had enough with Donald Trump. Maybe this is the last straw. But holy crap, there's a lot of straw in that pile for this to be the last straw, where he's done, in my mind, almost the exact same thing.
But he's also been memory hold, right?
Yeah.
And so I think part of her job on Tuesday was to sort of remind people of the crazy, right? Because they're looking back, and for example, if you look at any old president, right, former president, most of their ratings go up after they leave. Okay, happened with Clinton, happened with Bush, happened with both Bushes actually. Certainly happened with Obama.
It's happening with Biden now.
And it's happening with Biden in real time.
Yeah.
Okay, it's simply a thing that we like our political leaders when they're not political leaders.
Yeah.
Okay, and so we are now at the point where a political leader is coming back to run, and he's telling you everything was really great, and she's like, well, wait a minute, we had a pandemic, people died. And, oh, by the way, you were crazy, and I'm going to make sure people remember the crazy. And that is sort of resetting the memory hole for this election.
We'll see.
And that's this.
Yeah.
You got to remember with this, and the way I viewed it is that they're talking to different audiences.
Yeah.
And especially for Kamala Harris, it's that, the quote, the pro-democracy coalition, the evolution of the Biden coalition, with a focus on trying to get a lot of centrist, Haley voters, potentially some movement conservatives, probably not.
Dick Cheney voters, yeah.
Cheney voters. I mean, which is the thing. I mean, that's, they
Taylor
exist
Swift,
out there,
Dick
certainly
Cheney
in Pennsylvania.
voters.
And
the Swift-Cheney coalition.
The Swift-Cheney coalition.
Yep,
the broadest
exactly.
coalition in American politics. Yeah.
She reminded them. And I think I think what Michael's saying, she re-upped all of that successfully, because we don't cover Trump rallies the way that we used to. We don't, talk about, people are surprised. And this is what I thought, talked about a little bit going into the debate, is we talked about it on the chain too, which is that, if there's a moment where he does something that's normal for him, like talking about dining on people with Hannibal Lecter or whatever, these Hannibal Lecter stories, For his
That's
world,
man, I'll tell you what, there's so many weird things about this election. I don't know why that's been a thing that people have seized on.
for his world, they understand that. In his world of voters, they see him riding.
Well, especially
cats
now
with
he's saying it because
AK-47s.
people keep talking about it.
They see him
Right.
like
He thinks
hugging
it's
the
a
duck
win.
and hugging the cat. You know, they see the AI generation in his world. In Kamala's world, they haven't seen this before, and they're like, "What the f are you talking about? Hannibal Lecter and cats and dogs? Like, what the hell is this? Wait a minute, is this bleach in veins? Is this one of those?" And it re-ups it, and I think she did a very successful job of re-upping that, because so many people, especially in the center, politically speaking, moderates, are just like, you know what, you guys figure this out, we'll vote, okay, but y'all figure this out. And I think what she did was that audience of 58 million, which we were talking about, that's a pretty good sized audience.
Huh?
It's
Yeah.
those are people who don't always tune in for this stuff. There's people who live their
Yes.
lives, and they wanna see one thing, make a decision, and then get back to work.
Justin, let me give you one prop for on the Trump side. Okay.
Okay.
Because I think we've probably gone a little too far over on one side. On the other side, as I'm watching the debate with my wife, I started counting and I lost count, but it seemed to me that every single time there was a question, Trump got the last answer. He got the last word on every single thing. They didn't cut his mic like they said they were going to, and every single time Trump got the last word. And it seemed like, let's say 50% of the time it was total anarchy, and then 25% of the time it was semi-coherent. But there was 25% of the time that he was totally coherent, right? And so he was able to make his point. And then when Kamala wanted to come back on and say, well, what about that? They shut her down very quickly, and she was like, all right, fine. There was sort of a strength thing there, right?
Yeah.
So, like, if you're looking for the strongest candidate, the one who's ready to grab the mic and say, no, I'm going to tell you what I think, he did exactly what he usually does, which is like, I'm going to keep talking until they shut me up. And they decided that they weren't going to. So I think that really helped. I mean, I think, when you were looking at, like, on points, the reason why it was so close, okay, even though Harris, in my opinion, won the thing,
Yeah.
the reason why it was close is because he always was able to grab back and say, you know what, no, that's not what it means, and then go into his point, even if it was incoherent and crazy. He still was able to land it at the end. And I kept saying to myself, what's going on with the moderators? Like, why are you not cutting his mic? I even said that in our chat.
I actually thought that he colored within the lines with the moderators in a way that he notably didn't in his worst performance with Chris Wallace, where he was just arguing.
Yeah, he
with
didn't
him.
argue with them. He didn't argue.
He didn't argue with them, and even when he was getting that extra time, he was looking at them and saying, like, I have to respond, and then David Muir would be like, okay, you have 1 minute.
Right.
And so he was like, he was asking permission and then going on his rants. He wasn't just running over them and forcing them to do it.
And conversely, when Harris tried to do that one time, she went to Meander Town, right?
Yeah.
So he's in Crazy Town. She came back and she's like, no, I want to talk about this. And then it was like all over the place.
And that's the one. All right, I'm going to say one last negative thing about Kamala, and then I do think that there's an element of evasiveness that we're just kind of glossing over because she did get under Trump's skin, and that's going to be what is focused on the most. But especially early on, there was a lot of she and this is I'm going to repeat a point that I made in the after show. This is a larger campaign thing because she's made herself scarce. There's been a lot of stuff that she just had to jam into places where I don't think they belonged. There's no reason why her first interview had to be with Tim Walz. There's no reason why she had to jam so much bio into that debate because she should have been doing this, in interviews beforehand. And so she shouldn't have to, like, the economy. What would you do different? And she's like, I'm a middle-class kid. Just give 4 words up front and address and dismiss and then get into that. Like, you can do it within 7 words and you just got to give an answer up front. There's an evasive element. Here's my negative thing about Trump. Cats and dogs. Let's focus on that.
Oh, God.
Right?
Yeah.
Regardless of whether or not there is a Haitian immigrant in Ohio who has eaten a cat. over the last year, right? The reality in Springfield, Ohio, is that there's 20,000 Haitian immigrants that the mayor and neighborhood groups are upset about. There was a distracted driver who was an immigrant, ran into a school bus, and a kid died. These are the things that tell you exactly what you need to say and gets you exactly where you need to go, with that. And he let it totally off the hook. And now everything's about proving, in the same way with the Aurora thing, with the Tren de Agua, Aragua, I'm going to get that Venezuelan gang name right at some point. Like now the fixation is, well, do they run the apartment buildings? And it's like, well, regardless if they run the apartment buildings, is there a Venezuelan gang problem in the suburbs of Denver in a way that there was not 2 years ago? That is what the Republicans, if they want to make the border a national issue, or they want to make immigration a national issue, that's what you focus on, not whether or not they run the apartment buildings, not whether or not there is a rampant cats, dogs, and geese problem with Haitian immigrants throughout Ohio. And this is, again, the one thing that I don't know is the most salacious element of it the gateway to get people talking about it at all? Would we talk about it at all if it weren't for the most salacious element?
Justin, it's a dumb hit. It's in Ohio. He's going to win Ohio. At least talk about, like, Haitian immigrants eating dogs and cats in, like, I don't know, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing is
pick a state that's actually interesting in this election. Ohio's not. If he
They're
loses
using
Ohio,
mustard
he's
instead
lost
of ketchup,
400
okay?
electoral votes.
It's
Yeah, well, that's like how do you not say Lake and
We're
Riley?
in Pennsylvania.
Like Lake and Riley's already a factor here. You should have had, you should have put that at a doorstep of your
But
drum.
just from a logical standpoint to what
Yeah.
you're saying here, and they could do that. Trump and I hear this repeatedly. I've heard this repeatedly from my Republican and conservative sources over the years that Trump has been in. This is why people wanted DeSantis instead of Trump.
Yes,
Because
Right.
DeSantis could go up there and say, clearly, albeit probably stiltedly, that
yeah.
okay, yes,
Here's
there
what
was-
we're not going to do.
Right.
yeah, there was a distracted driver. This is what happened, and this family is grieving, and you can have a real debate about that. I listen to J.D. Vance in particular, but Trump as well, because Vance is really emulating Trump. In the spin room afterwards, he's like, well, I don't know. I just saw this thing on TV. I haven't really looked into it. And I'm looking, it reminded me of when Doug Emhoff did his introduction, and he's like, oh, and a friend put me in touch with a lawyer, and I called her up. I called up this lawyer, and I left a voicemail. Man, it was so weird. And I'm like, yo, you were calling the Attorney General of California. You did not just call up a lawyer.
Right.
Okay? And you're a big bucks entertainment lawyer. J.D. Vance is a sitting United States senator with millions of dollars of staff money, okay? They all have researchers who can go online and do some actual internet research and find out what really happened and come back to him and say, just put it in one of the IFPs, all right? And just say, all right, Senator, this is the name of the family, all right?
Yeah.
Boy was 11 years old. This is what you talk about. And they could have done that for Trump, too.
Yeah.
But it's his inability to handle those things. I mean, that's the difference between watching the nightly news and watching InfoWars every night. And if you watched the nightly news, or if you watched local TV, because this has been covered extensively, he would have that baked into his head to deliver as a point on stage, as opposed to whatever this crazy that the Russia bots have been pushing about fricasseeing cats and dogs. But that's what he went with, because he's trapped in that world. He's in a way, he's almost a victim.
Well, he's a heat seeker.
candidate.
He's a heat seeker, and he's always been that. He has been like that forever. Before he got into politics, there's a reason why he had very strident opinions about the love life of the Twilight cast. That's what he was doing. Not because he particularly loves Twilight or he's plugged into teen actors. It's just because that's what people were talking about on Twitter. And so he's going to have a strong opinion on it. That is what people were talking about in his world. It was cats and dogs. They were making AI images of him hugging cats. And there we go. All right. We're going to take a break in the podcast, and then we're going to come back and talk about the future beyond the debate, what we are looking for going forward in this race. This is your update, brought to you by TakePoliticsSeriously.com. That's where you head on over if you want to get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. We have one on Monday morning, Sunday afternoon sometimes, where we break down all the Sunday shows. And then we got the late edition, which if you got yesterday, you heard yesterday that Donald Trump will not do a third debate, at least for now. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. It's where you need $3 each week, 2 bonus episodes. Come on, it's a good time. Let's get into some of the news stories, and we've got polls, post-debate polls, and they are good for Kamala Harris. Well, most of them are. So these are all released Thursday. Most of them were done immediately after the debate. Harris 47, Trump 42, according to Reuters Ipsos. The New York Post has Harris at 50, Trump at 47. That is a Harris plus 3. Rasmussen, which does tilt Republican, has Trump up 47-49. Morning Consult has Harris up by 5 and also kissing 50. Those are the 4 national polls. Now, we mentioned in our Patreon episode, Tony Fabrizio of the Trump campaign, but he is a respected pollster. He says that their swing state average has Trump up 2, but plus 5 is where Kamala wants to be. That is like around the Biden margin from this time in 2020. Now, of course, the Biden margin this time in 2020 was an extraordinarily close race, but still, you want to be there as opposed to not being there. We'll see exactly how durable any of this is, because the polls that happened immediately after the race, it's a little swingy. Here's the other big one. This is insider advantage. Trump up 1 in Michigan. We will have a little bit more talk about Michigan in the second half of this podcast with Michael Cohen. Donald Trump did notch a legal victory yesterday, even if his debate performance was hotly disputed. This one came down in Georgia. The judge overseeing the case charging Trump with conspiring to interfere with the 2020 election tossed out 3 more of the prosecution's charges on Thursday, 2 of which involved Trump himself. Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee said that 3 counts were legally flawed because they involved claims that Trump or his allies violated state law by submitting fraudulent documents to a federal court in Atlanta. One count of that pertained to the lawsuit Trump filed there in December 31st, 2020 against Republican Governor Brian Kemp, an attempt to block the certification of the state's electoral votes in favor of Joe Biden. The other 2 dismissed charges involving certification sent to the federal court of a so-called alternative slate of electors that Trump aides and allies drafted as part of their efforts to dispute the elections. Similar efforts were made in other swing states. So the false electors charge is gone now in that Georgia case. You still have the RICO stuff, but if that's gone, this Georgia case is pretty well fallen apart, in my opinion. Who knows exactly what happens based on the result of the election, but this has not held together particularly well. Obviously, it was swamped in controversy with Fani Willis and her prosecutor, Nathan Wade, being revealed to having a romantic relationship. Also, body cam footage of Fani Willis attending to her daughter being stopped at a traffic stop. Nathan Wade was with her. So we don't know. They said that they were no longer together. Who knows exactly how much that is the case. But between this and the Mar-a-Lago documents case essentially being thrown out, we have the updated version of the January 6th case, but anything federal will essentially be terminated if Donald Trump wins. And finally, New York City Police Commissioner Edward Caban has resigned. This from Mayor Eric Adams. at a press conference on Thursday, nearly a week after the FBI seized Caban's devices in a federal investigation. Adams said he accepted Caban's resignation on Thursday. Quote, he concluded that this is the best decision at this time. I respect this decision and I wish him well, the mayor said, while touting a drop in crime during his tenure during the New York City Police Department's commissioner. Caban said he made the decision to step down from his role after the, quote, news around recent developments created a distraction from our department, the Associated Press reported after obtaining an email from Caban to the police department. Quote, I am unwilling to let my attention be on anything other than our important work or the safety of the men and women of the NYPD. Something's fishy, dude. Something is fishy in New York City. And if Caban is leaving, then you got to imagine that it's Eric Adams hoping that that's where it ends. That's the fire. That's where the fire stops. But that is our update for today. Again, takepoliticsseriously.com is where you need to go if you want to get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. Only $3. If you'd buy me a cup of coffee to get 2 bonus episodes, come on, head on over there right now. Takepoliticsseriously.com. Michael, where do you see this race polling-wise, and what are you looking for?
I'm actually not seeing polling yet. And, you know, the instant polls after the debate are just worthless.
You're worthless, less than worthless.
Can we just let them go? Like, even if they're scientifically done, they're just worthless. Because what you're really looking for is impact on the race. Okay?
Yeah.
And so the real question is more than anything else is who's impactable. And you're not going to know that for at least, another few days. Like beginning of next week, you'll get some overnight polling that went, through the week. And then, certainly during the day. And so the best polls that you're going to start seeing will be like Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. Okay. And so when we see that, what I expect is that nothing's going to change. Is that this is going to be a very...
Then that's my point. That's my point. That's my point about the debate is that nothing's going to change.
Okay. Well, there's 2 points here, Justin. And I know you haven't slept a lot because you have a new baby. But I mean, part of this is, what happened in the debate and then what's the impact of the debate, right? So we've covered what the debate is, right?
What happened, yeah.
So what happens after the debate is, if she moves up 1 or 2 points, oh my God, like now you're at a point where she's like maybe outside the margin of error, right? Because she
has come back down from Brat Summer. Brat Summer, big rollout. She was up to like what 4.5 in the aggregates, and now she has come back to like 2.5.
Right. If she can get herself to around 3, then we can say that the debate did something for her. If it's still 2.5, then the debate was a nothing burger, and frankly, there's no reason for either candidate to go do another debate. Okay. Yeah. And so because it's not going to move the needle, like who cares, right? Trump believes if he's within 2%, and he's probably right nationally, he's got a really good shot at running the table again in certain states, right? Yeah. And so the other part is just not just the national polls. I want to start looking at those statewides that are going to come through. Yeah. And please, if you're listening to this podcast, if you see any poll at a state level, particularly among these battleground states, that's less than 800 respondents, please dismiss it out of hand. Okay. Yeah. Just it's not misinformation. It's just not enough information. Right. So please just step back. If you see,
so 800 is your. If we're going to give the Michael Cohen rule of thumb, it is 800 on a statewide level.
800 is basically the baseball version of the Mendoza line, right? Yeah. If you are above 200 in baseball, that is the bare minimum you have to stay in the league. Below it, don't look at it. So if I'm looking at a good poll in a state, we're looking at 1,000 or more. Okay, so start looking at people who are actually investing in polling and who are actually doing polls that are longer and over a longer period of time than just like who's up, who's down. Okay, so please dismiss anything under 800, and then please dismiss anything that was done in less than 3 days. Okay. Gotcha. I want to look at a poll that's over 3 or 4 days, because that gives people enough time to catch up to what happened, to socialize it, and then to come to a new benchmark on where they are. Okay. It is very possible that they will go right back to where they were. So that's why you do a poll over a long period of time, as opposed to an instant poll, which is says, okay, who won? Yeah, I guess they won. But does it matter? That's never the question they ask, right? Does it matter? They only ask those stupid, fake focus groups. Like, and CNN does it now even without Frank Luntz, who pioneered this garbage.
This
And
was, yeah.
pardon me,
Yeah.
but a focus group only works if you feel that you're anonymous, which means that you can say whatever you really think, as opposed to
Yeah.
I'm on camera and I said this. And oh, by the way, hey, did you see me on CNN last night?
Yeah.
Okay, those are total trash. Like, that is filler. Like, if you are watching those, you are wasting valuable time in your life. So please wait, wait for the polls to come out, like in Tuesday or Wednesday of next week.
Yeah.
Be very smart about what you're reading, and then decide whether or not this is actually happening. So the problem with all the Real Clear Politics and all the other sort of, like, aggregators of polls
Aggregator.
is they're picking up the polls that are crap in addition to
Yeah.
the good polls.
Yes.
So for me, look at the ones, at least that's the way I evaluate. Look
Yeah.
at the ones that have at least 800, at least 3 or 4 days in the field, and then decide, okay, what does this feel like? And then wrap it up in your brain as to where this thing is going. Basically, what I think is this is exactly where it's going to go, where we always knew it was going to go. It's where Kamala Harris and her team are saying it's going to go. Close race. Nothing has changed. We had a good night. There's a lot of nights left. And I
Yeah.
think that both campaigns would say that.
It
Tom, what
reminds
are
me-
you looking for?
It reminds me, I want to build on what Michael said here. 20 years ago when I was in grad school for political science, and I'll tell you, I did great at public budgeting, had a lot of fun in the case studies courses always. That's always a ton of fun. I was at stat. I just sucked wind at stats.
Most people
But
don't.
but I do remember a number of things sitting in there. They're drilling R into our heads. How do you solve for R, which is the academic here. And one thing they repeatedly said are the sample sizes that we're working with, and that's polling. I mean, polling in its essence, good polling, and there's a lot of polling out there, is in its essence is an academic exercise. And when it's done properly, that sample size, your N of between 800 to 1,000, depending upon what universe of whatever that you're looking at, is good and sound, and it gets you somewhere to where that I'm totally screwing this up, but on your curve, all right. So where you're not looking at your deviators, or you're looking at in between your 95%, 96% likelihoods in the center of these respondents here. And your margins of error run between, on a baseline plus minus 3.5%. Because I'll see these polls where people, especially the campaigns, love to put them out. The congressional committees, especially, where they're like, it's 600 people plus minus 4.5. And I look at that, I'm like, well, that's crap. Why are we, like, pardon my French, why are we talking about this? All right, this shit is worthless. And I remember people would be like, oh, but, it's tracking polls. You get a number of them over time. And I'm like, no, that doesn't, I don't think that works the way you think it works. Like, I don't think this improves. And what you get with, and this is kind of the way, like when I read 538, for instance, and I look through, this is how I'm judging the New York Times Siena poll, for instance. Yeah. You can see trends in certain pollsters. Like, it's pretty widely well known and understood that Rasmussen is a crap poll that always errs in favor of Republicans.
Trash mussin, you call it.
Yeah. Yes, it really is. It's terrible. It's Quinnipiac, for whatever reason, tends liberal.
Right.
It always tends more Democratic. And I look at, the NYT Siena thing is really weird because their numbers have bounced a lot this cycle. The variations on them from poll to poll being pro-Democrat, in the findings. I'm not saying that in their methodology, but in terms of the findings, erring one way or the other, outside of what we're seeing. The ones which have been steady, which I've been watching and seem to track more with this, are Morning Consult has shown Consults early in the race, and Consults polling results tended towards to show a more conservative bent, and I think they still do, but the trend line on all of their responses goes in the same direction.
Yeah,
it's consistent, and it's showing exactly this: a normalizing of support just above, like just inside that margin of error, that 3%, give or take, for Harris. And if you look at like 538, everybody lost their minds over the New York Times thing because that's what got all the exposure. But there were a number of polls out in the field at the same time, which came back with responses at about the same time. And you can see it listed over at 538, which showed the opposite of what the New York Times was showing. And showing that there's still a lot of support for Harris, that there's not a major shift in national support, a flipping of that plus minus, like 3 or 4% or whatever.
Yeah, but Tom, that's like your problem. I mean, like, you're a reporter, so like, the problem is like you see the shiny ball and everyone goes to the shiny ball, right?
I know.
So hopefully the kind viewers of this podcast who are, obviously, elite,
Intelligent, beautiful,
really smart, generous.
Generous.
Yeah. I mean, the kind of people that, you'd really want to have a beer with.
Exactly.
Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, like, when you're looking at these polls, you need to start looking at this point, because now we're past, Labor Day.
Yep.
You need to start looking at not just registered voters, not just adults, but you need to start looking at likely voters.
Likely voters.
And there's a number of different ways that you do this with polling. Number one, you could just ask the question, how likely are you to vote? Now, for people who are like first-time voters, you have to do that, right? Because they've never voted before. But generally what goes on is that they define what we call voter universes, and you sample from those, which means you take random, people from those, and based upon registration, if they're D's and R's or I's, and then you also know how many times they voted, okay? So actually the polling now is actually much better in knowing the universe of people who are going to vote. On top of all of that, Trump is a known quantity, so you know what Trump voters look like, where we didn't know that 2 cycles ago. What we don't know is young voters who are new and how many of them are going to jump on the Harris train. That's the unknown for me.
Well, or the Trump train. I mean, like, they've put a ton of time and effort into young men.
Yes.
Like 18 to
young
35.
Men, by the way. Mm-hmm. Right. Young Black or Hispanic men. Right.
But that's like, if you look at even the podcast track that they've been on, it's like Theo Vaughn, young men, Lex Friedman, young men, the Full Send podcast that they put JD Vance on,
WWE,
young men. Like these are like, when I listen to it, I've never felt older than when I listen to like the Full Send podcast, and I'm like I'm doing research on who the Nelk Boys are, and it's like, oh, they were like a pull your pants down prank channel that now apparently is a voter registration drive for Republicans.
And Justin, 21-year-old me is watching that channel.
Oh God!
Yeah.
I mean, like if I think of like what I was consuming, it was MTV for my generation. That was what I was doing through high school and college, and now that doesn't exist. I mean, like MTV is like 3 reality shows and a clips package. Yeah. Now you are exclusively watching YouTube, and that's where you're reaching these voters. Let me ask you this, Michael.
Sure.
What is the voter universe, and how hard is it to define for Trump, especially when we haven't really seen a candidate that has taken some of this dead cable of non-voters in each of these elections and put them into play? Like, how hard is it to poll for somebody like Donald Trump, I guess?
It is easier now because you have a track record. But in 2016, for example, one of the biggest reasons why we were all surprised was because nobody knew that he was going to be able to pull in these voters who don't vote. Like eligible voters who don't vote. He literally created a new universe of voters, and has done a fantastic job from a campaign standpoint of nurturing them, keeping them on board, feeding them, and growing them, right? Because what's happening is he knows the profile of his voters. They skew more male. Some of them are younger. They love the fact that he's going to WWE. They love the fact that he's like at NASCAR.
UFC. I don't know if he's done
UFC. I'm sorry, whatever it is at this point. Yeah, I mean, I keep up. Like I was there when it was WWF and then the WWF.
He is a WWE Hall of Famer, but he has not been there.
Yeah, like he doesn't care about his star on Hollywood. He cares more about the WWE,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
so,
there's like he was like a Vince McMahon friend, so, and that's a more complicated topic that
yeah, it's
we
weird.
could.
But anyway,
Yeah.
but they always have like those storylines where you're a goon, you're a not goon. So like he totally understands, like what that world is. So like that's the universe that we actually think we know more about. And because you're talking about young men, we know that because that's where he's over-indexing on,
Yes.
right? Okay. What we don't know is there enough women, who, by the way, vote more often than men,
Yep.
to show up? As is there a underlying Swiftie vote that is all of a sudden going to show up? Hey, ask the NFL. That mattered. Okay.
Yeah.
It certainly mattered for buying jerseys.
It mattered for buying jerseys. It also mattered for attendance. It also mattered for eyeballs.
Yeah.
The NFL was kind of in a tough spot post concussions and stuff like that. They got lucky with that Taylor Swift decided to date the right guy. Okay. And so, is there a mirror universe that is not Trumpian, but the opposite of Trumpian that she can lean into, the Taylor Swift Barbie universe to combat what he's doing on his side?
But that feels like a cohort that's more engaged already. Like that was a cohort that was.
But are they? I mean,
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we don't know. We don't know.
That's the thing. Like when you talk to like college age women, all of a sudden now they're like, "Holy, abortion is a big deal to me," right? In those states where there are ballot initiatives, they're going to get hit by the Harris campaign and by the initiative teams.
Yeah.
So to a real extent, like you're starting to look at the mirror image of universes that Trump has fed over the past 9 years, and Harris, who is the beneficiary of a mirror universe that we don't know if they've caught lightning in a bottle or not.
Yeah.
So I actually think that there's actually much more unknown on the Harris side than on the Trump side, and that has flipped based upon the fact that Trump has basically been running for president the last 3 cycles.
One last nerdy polling question. The polling errors of 2016, 2020, and 2022 have been talked about a lot. They were polling errors that undercounted Trump in both 2016 and 2020. 2022, they were more aggressive toward Republican candidates, but obviously Trump was not on the ballot. Trump selected candidates were on the ballot, but Trump was not on the ballot. Do you have a thought, a gut feeling on what we're going to see? I mean, I know that the general caution from smart pollsters are don't bet on a polling error on either side because it could go either way. But whenever anybody cites 2022 as like, well, it could go toward the Democrats' favor, it's like, no, Trump wasn't on the ballot. Trump needs to be on the ballot for that to count, in my opinion. And maybe this is the first time.
I feel like that pollsters have finally solved for X on this one. I feel like that they understand where Trump is, what his ceilings are, where what his range is. I mean, his range is really super tight. Okay, he's got his people; they're there. So I don't know that there's really a new group of voters for Trump that he has not been trying to get. So I don't. It's like the Donald Rumsfeld thing. There are knowns, there are knowns, there are unknowns, there are this is a known at this point. Like
that he's a hard cap 48% candidate.
Right. Hers is actually much more fuzzy to me. Like for example,
we don't know.
I wear glasses to read, and when you're looking at margins of error, okay, for polling, you look at it without your glasses on. Okay, the margin of error is like, okay, is that an M on the wall or is that an N on the wall, right? How close can I get to that? Oh, I could put on my glasses, and if I have 1,500, I know more, right? The problem is that Harris has been a candidate for
11 seconds.
Right?
Yeah.
For a hot minute. And we've proven that she's a different candidate than Biden, okay?
Yes.
So you can't just co-opt the Biden coalition. So I'm actually interested more in, okay, does Tim Walz translate to anywhere else but his home state? My point of view is that he goes into Pennsylvania. He might chug you down a few beers and talk football and stuff like that. But Pennsylvania is really into being in Pennsylvania. Okay.
Yes.
Like that's a state where if you're in Pennsylvania, if you're not from Pennsylvania, well, I don't really care. Like,
Get outta
you're
here.
not a politician. Even if you talk really well with me, you're not going to all of a sudden, be a
No.
Pennsylvanian. Like, Biden barely won Pennsylvania, and he was from
He's Scranton
Pennsylvania.
Joe. He's
Right.
Scranton Joe.
He's literally Scranton Joe, and he barely won Pennsylvania. So don't tell me that all of a sudden, like, Tim Walz is going to win you Pennsylvania or Ohio or something else. Or same thing with Vance, right? I
Yeah.
think the biggest strategic mistake by both campaigns was picking dudes who they thought would play outside of where their sandboxes. I think people now are so tribal that they are looking at not only their parties, but also, this is where I'm from. Like, who the hell are you? Like, you're talking about
Yeah.
fracking? Oh, yeah, I got some friends who are into fracking, but we're more than fracking in Pennsylvania, right? You go to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh now is completely different than it was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay? And so I think that to a real extent, there's a lot of unknowns with Harris than knowns. And I think with Trump, it is much more solidified, like who he is and what he thinks he's going for. For her, I can't tell you what a Harris voter is at this point. I just can't. I can tell you what a Trump voter is.
I think the smartest thing that I have heard statistically is that, you know, the reason why you pull the ripcord on Biden for Kamala is that you saw Biden's cap was below 48, and
Right.
that was going to be a problem. The risk reward of Kamala is that she could be above 48,
Right.
but she could also be lower than Biden.
Right.
And we don't know what it is.
We really don't. What we do know is that the trend is good for Harris. All right. It was
Yes.
a sea of red since
Yeah,
Afghanistan.
enthusiasm is plus plus plus. All right, we're gonna go out on this.
Cool.
Tom, tipping point state.
Oh, well, I mean, everything comes down to Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
I just
Agreed.
don't see any world. It's from a raw math standpoint, it is still the largest number of votes, 19, even somewhat diminished over the years. I think it used to be 20. Most maps run through there, and I think I was doing it yesterday. If you put the blue wall is 272 for Harris.
yeah.
Right? So if you collect Michigan and
Lose all the Sun Belt.
yep, you can lose everything else. You can say that you like black jobs and you hate Latino jobs, and lose everything else and hold down the blue wall, and you win with 272.
Yeah,
So I mean, to me, it really comes down because, especially if you look at like the trend lines, seem to be that Michigan and Wisconsin are more pulling away from Trump for Harris, but Pennsylvania still seems to be more in place. So I mean, it's the keystone of pretty much every electoral scenario.
Also the Keystone.
there we go. Keystone State.
Well played.
Keystone State. You
Yeah.
got it.
That's a write-up.
Michael, your tipping point state. You can't pick Pennsylvania. Other than Pennsylvania, what are you looking at?
I'm looking at Michigan. Okay.
Michigan?
I don't know that I buy that Michigan is pulling away. I think that the longer Gaza stays in play, Michigan,
And it's gonna now. It doesn't look like that's
over.
gonna resolve.
I don't think there's a deal that's going to happen. I think it's over. Ever since those 6 people were killed and the
Yeah.
DOJ decided to go after the leadership, it's over. It's over.
Yeah.
So that is a known at this point, right? And so for me, I know that these students are going back to school. Okay.
Yeah.
I know that as soon as they get through their first round of exams, they're going to have some time.
Yeah.
Right. And as soon as that happens, you're going to see
It's
encampment
encampment season.
It's encampment city again. And even if it's not encampments, it's pissed off voters. And even, Harris has decided to put it on Hamas because she's tried to triangulate the Israelis, Palestinians, and Hamas.
Yeah.
And Hamas is the problem. Well, the problem is that if you've watched any of these protests, which I have, I'm Jewish and, everybody knows my priors, they're not just saying free Palestine. They're saying go Hamas. And so
There are certainly elements
There's
within
certainly
those where you are seeing Hamas and Hezbollah flags and stuff like that.
there are
Yeah.
certainly non-inconsequential numbers in Michigan that can make this much more difficult for Harris. So my question really is as we get closer and she starts seeing, the polling that is like, 600, maybe 800, sort of wishy-washy, and they're within the margin of error, I wonder how far she goes on that issue to pull them back. If you see her do that, then you know her internal polling is showing that she's still not doing well. So
Yeah.
in addition to Pennsylvania, but not a replacement for Pennsylvania, because you put me on the spot, I'm going to say that it's going to be Michigan, which is a state that Harris should win, but may not win
Yeah.
because of this issue. So I think that's in play.
So if you start seeing arms embargo to Israel rumors or stuff
I may
like
not
that,
give them
yeah.
certain weapons.
Yeah.
Or I may, it'll be like that. It'll be like these sort of incremental, I'm not going to go to Israel while Bibi Netanyahu is
Still prime minister.
Like,
Yeah,
if he's
there were
asked a
CARE
question
polls
by
that
a
got.
reporter like Tom, because Tom's smart. He would say to her, "So, would you go to Israel under these circumstances? Would you meet with Bibi Netanyahu if he invited you to speak to the Knesset?
Yeah.
What would you do?" If she says, "Oh no, I don't want any part of that crap," then you're like,
Well, she
okay.
would have to do interviews for that
Has
to be
she?
the
I
case.
don't think I've heard her say two-state.
She
She did. I think she did on stage. She did on stage.
okay.
Yeah.
We need to move to
All
a
right.
two-state solution. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The problem is like at this point, anybody who's talking about a two-state solution, I think is just fundamentally
You're on crack. I mean,
It's just we're like look, you got to be serious about what is happening there. I don't know. I'm not going to
Anyway,
in the
I
last
think it's
5 minutes go
yeah,
into Gaza,
I
but
think it's interesting.
all right. Mine is Georgia. Number one, I don't buy North Carolina at all. Ask Jamie Harrison about
No way.
polls in North Carolina in
Yep.
August and September.
Oh.
And he's great, by the way, Jamie. He's really good. Yeah.
Well, he wasn't good enough to win that.
No, I'm
Senate
saying
seat.
he's
Yeah.
great about what he knows about the state.
Yeah.
He just couldn't win. Nobody could have won.
Yeah, but that's the thing. But if you look at those polls back in when he was running, it looked really good. He was up like 5-6 points, and then that is a
You
state
mean
that
with
for me,
Sample size.
yeah, for me closes Republican late. That has been the tale of the last few cycles.
Agreed.
I've said on this show before, if you're Kamala Harris, it's Pennsylvania and Georgia. Those are the two states. You should be living in Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and Atlanta, and you have to turn out that Raphael Warnock coalition.
Black one,
You have to turn out Atlanta and the suburbs. Like that's where your core base. I don't think that there is a state with a bigger core base of flippable Republicans than Atlanta, than those collar counties in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Like that is a never Trump, like they are in play in a way that like they would vote for Trump, but also when Trump floated out David Perdue, they like crushed him in favor of Kemp. They would flip for Warnock. They would got Kelly Loeffler out of there in favor of
They were
Ossoff,
also told
who is
not to vote.
not an electric candidate in my opinion.
Yes.
Yeah. he's
So
an
that to me, Georgia and Pennsylvania, those are the two. I we'll see. Nevada's so weird, but the Nevada vibes I'm getting is that might be out of play for the Democrats. It's so small. It's essentially Clark County, and we don't know. Arizona also feels like a really weird like that. Also, like they're like treating it like it's kind of a more out of play than the public polling is showing. So we'll see. But Georgia's my Sunbelt tipping point state. They have to
16.
play well there.
That's
It's so close there too. I mean, there's so many reasons why Biden won last time that are so, pandemic related, and Trump the way he was like talking down, voting. I mean, I think that's a tough one. Yeah.
But also, Trump sucked it up and made up with Kemp and has activated the Kemp machine, which is.
But did he? Are they excited about it? I mean,
It's literally just the machine. It's his turnout operation that he needs, and as long as that is going,
yeah, but they all know that
Kemp
Trump hates
activated
him. They all know that Trump hates him. So I mean, like, there's a machine, but is the machine well oiled? I don't know about that. It's tough.
Well,
Tough one.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
If I were Trump, I'd rather have it than not have it. I guess I'll say that.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
you need it.
he was always going to have it
Absolutely.
because Las Avita and Wilds were going to be like, look, enough. We've got to do this. I mean, do you want to lose again? I mean,
Well, also, it's in Kemp's benefit because if Kemp wants to run for president, he's got to do it in 28, right? And so you need to burn out this Trump eligibility now. You don't want Trump running again in 28 and mucking it up.
He's already said he will
He
run
doesn't
again
need
in
to run.
28.
He's not going to run. I mean, he's. If anything, I would think he'd
Don't
run
do
for
it,
Senate.
Michael. Don't do it. You're gonna like. This is how we get another 4-year cycle of Donald Trump heat raying everybody in the Republican primary and running into the general.
He's going to heat ray everyone until he dies. Like, you think like 28's off the table when he's 85 years old and he's still
Oh no,
alive?
I don't.
No,
I
it's
think he
not.
will. If he does not win, we have another 4 years of Trump.
If he's
100%.
breathing, he's running. Yeah.
Well, I guess, yeah, that's the thing. No matter what, we have another 4 years of Trump. So anybody who thinks that we're getting rid of Trump if he loses, put that out of your mind. No matter what, this man is going to be in your life until he dies.
Yeah, if you thought J.D. Vance was the future of the party, like you've been watching. I mean,
There we go. I got a cat to sell you. All right.
just don't eat
Michael
my
Cohen.
dog.
The Modern Political Campaigns book available, right? A new edition coming out soon.
New edition
Nice.
coming out beginning of next year. I have put it to bed on my side. My wife and some experts are actually reading it over to make sure that we have covered all the bases. New chapter on AI and campaigns, very subtle, going on in the background, not just disinformation, but also like how they're actually using campaigns, particularly at the state and local level. Unlike usual campaigns with innovation where it's really expensive, these are tools that everybody could play with, and they're playing with them. We've got some stories about that.
Hell yeah.
Nice. Tom LoBianco, 24site.news.
Yes, sir.
What do you got cooking?
Okay, well, I'm going to be spending a lot of time up in Pennsylvania. I'll tell you that. Because it's drivable from the 24 Site News Bureau in suburban Washington on the north side of the Potomac River. And I do enjoy me some Rudders. Rudders is underrated as a gas station cuisine goes in Pennsylvania.
Off the board, deep cut, not
Yeah,
Wawa,
baby.
not Sheets.
You know, my family's from York. Half my family's from York, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And everybody
nice.
forgets about York. They all forget about Harrisburg. Everybody's all. I remember
Everyone's
in
super-
2016, Trump came down and did an event at Martin's Air Force Base. So I'm from outside of Baltimore, second season of The Wire.
Yep.
And it went down to Martin's Air Force Base with Dundalk, the old steel plant down there, Sparrows Point area. And everybody in the newsroom was like, what the hell is he doing down in Maryland? I'm like, yeah, that guy's getting Pennsylvania votes. It's everybody who lives in those McMansions up 83 just over the line. And that's a real thing. Go look at that map. What was that base ballot Nathaniel Rakich or one of those guys put out of the baseball teams?
Yeah.
The O's stretch up into the center of Pennsylvania. And that's a real demographic right there. So, yeah, I'm going to be up in PA a whole bunch. I'm watching a lot of Western PA, too. I got to see how that plays. You got that.
Yin's going to be out there talking to everybody to the John Ogle.
Stuffing so many French fries on so many hamburgers.
For Manny's,
I mean,
yeah.
Hey, Tom, just over the border in Gettysburg, there's a good brewery.
Oh, yeah? Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, what's up, man? Let's do it. Field trip.
Go.
Absolutely.
There we go.
I-
We
I-
haven't
I
really
do that.
explored the beer snob element of Michael Cohen's character here on the show.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to get into that at some
Well,
point.
here in-
Well, look, like during the off season, we're only like 2 months away from this being a very boring podcast, so we'll do like a 12-part series of Michael Cohen's favorite beers.
Look, if you're not drinking at this point, you're not paying attention. I mean, it's time. It's time. It's go time. Like,
Let's go!
no sleep, lots of beer, bad food. Like that is
That's-
a campaign.
I'll tell you what, man. I am living.
it's
This
on.
is a fever dream between this and the newborn. All right. Thank you guys so much. We will keep our eyes on Election Day.
Awesome. Thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks, Justin.
And that'll wrap it up for us today. Politics, written and hosted by me, Justin Robert Young, for Dog and Pony Show Audio in Austin, Texas. A big thank you to Michael Cohen, the man who wrote the book on the modern political campaign, and to Tom LoBianco, 24site.news, 24sight.news. Just that easy. Find and follow and share clips of this show. Justin R. Young on TikTok, Justin R. Young on Instagram, Justin R. Young on X, at Politics on YouTube, and you can find the audio version of this show, px3podcast.com. You want to hit us off with a one-time donation, it is paypal.me/payjury, P-A-Y-J-U-R-Y. Venmo is Justin-Young-20. Cash App is PX3Cash. And you can send me anything you'd like in the mail. Post Office Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. Of course, you can always get our bonus content at TakePoliticsSeriously.com. $3 tier gets you 2 bonus podcasts per week, covering all the news we miss on our free podcasting schedule. And our $10 tier gets your name read at the end of the show, like these fine folks in the Titanic. $10 tier, including Adam, Phil, the Borge B, Dr. Whiskey, Sean, CP, David Potts, Nicholas, Whiskey Wolf, Sparky from Stevens, Florida, Will Porta, Fat Tony's PJs from New York, Devon the CFP, Gloria, my mom, Gray Zone, Peapaw, J, Marcus with a Q, DP4 Bongo, Sam, John, Niemeister, Edwin, and vote Gloria Young for King of the New World Order, Edison, Jeremy, a dog named Checkers, Sarah Jeannie, Matthew, Dr. G, Neil, his nerdiness, Charles, Audrey stole Adler's spot, Darren, Idris Arslanian, Bluefront, and the Lenina, Berkeley, Steven, Chad, Zombie Doc, Matt P, Chill, Adam, Chief Andy, Robert, Casey, Paul, Dustin, Brad, D-Laser, Nick, just another pilot, Middle-aged Mike, Utah, Jimmy Montana, the Jen, Alo, D, really? Craig, and Andrew. You want your name read at the end of the show during these so important episodes as we are down the stretch. One place to go. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. And that'll wrap it up for us today. Thank you all for joining us. We've got some cool guests percolating up for next week, but we will get those when we land them. Till then, it's your old pal Justin Robert Young saying, some shows talk about politics. Some shows talk about politics, and I knew another one once that talked about politics, but this is the only show that dares discuss all three.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Dog and Pony Show audio.